Oh, thank you, Susan, and it's great to be here. Okay, so I am going to be doing a World Poets of Resistance. And when thinking about this, one of the things I was very conscious of is, with book banning going on and the censorship, it really seems to me a good time to look at what has been done and is being done to outspoken writers, particularly poets, in terms of resistance and protest. We're going to do it on two levels. I'm going to have one essay, possibly two, probably one, from a wonderful book called Line Breaks by James Scully, which is on his ideas of poetry social practice. And he argues for artistic and cultural practices that actively oppose structures of power. And that's what the poets we're going to be looking at are doing. They're going to be they've actively or are actively opposing structures of power. Bakhtash Abtin, who probably most of you haven't heard of, is a very important Iranian poet who just died while incarcerated for his words, and 10 other poets, Iranian poets that are incarcerated, went on a hunger strike. And this is just in January of this year. Beidou, we're going to look at, who was exiled from China for over 2 decades, and his poems were used in the Tiananmen Square demonstrations. We're going to look at Daisy Zamora, who says she thought she was going to die in the Nicaraguan struggle for the people, for the Sandinistas, I should say, who was then with her backpack, and somebody would find a notebook of her poems. And now she has many poems published. But back then, she was on the radio a lot, as well as she actually was involved in conflict. But she said she would read poems, and in between, she'd be like, "This is how you make a Molotov cocktail." We're going to look at Nazim Hikmet, who is a poet for peace in Turkey, who was in and out of prison in the 40s and the 50s and became a world voice. And here's a small excerpt of one of his poems. "To talk to anyone besides myself is forbidden, so I talk to myself. But I find my conversation so boring, my dear wife, that I sing songs." It's one of his poems he wrote while he was incarcerated. We're going to also go back in time and look at people like Gabriel de la Concepcion Valdez, who was born of a Spanish mother and an African father in the 1700s and was executed because of his poetry, was actually hung. And Francis Harper, an abolitionist poet who in the 1860s sold over 15,000 copies, which is like a real bestseller for a poet now. For abolitionist poets, one of our most famous poets, small excerpt: "Make me a grave where you will, in a lonely plain or empty hill. Make it amongst earth's humblest graves, but not in a land when are slaves." Uh, we're going to look at people like Lehman Nasrin, who is an exiled Bangladeshi poet. "Am I so dangerous a criminal, so vicious an enemy of humanity, such a traitor to my country that I can't have a homeland to call my own? You've gouged out my eyes, you've drawn my tongue out and snapped it into pieces. You've arrested me so that I die, yet I call you my homeland, call you with infinite love." So those and other poets, we're going to read and discuss their poems. I'm going to put together a reader, look at some videos of them. And I just have to say, with the censorship that's going on now, I know, because I got complaints even at the DeYoung back in the day, that the lessons I teach young people, like the fact that the Mexicans crossing the border are actually coming home, because Mexico included California, would be subject to censorship in many states in the United States, as well as many of the poems I write in terms of the history I tell. So I think it's really important to look at poets who are in rebellion using their art to push forward. Hope I see some of you. Thank you.